All right, everyone, welcome to the GGG Podcast, episode 33. Oh my goodness, I still can't believe how many episodes we've had. As always, I am Paul, and I am joined this week by my co-host, Phil. We got a great show for you today. Got some good news coming out. Got some new games to talk about. So that is always exciting. And lots of games getting some more updates in this kind of in-between spring and summertime. Lots of game updates coming out. But to start things off, Phil, have you had some time to play video games this week? Particularly any games that have come out recently?
I have had time to play some games. I've been playing a bit of Hades 2 and a good chunk of Animal Well, which we'll get into a little bit later, and V Rising. V Rising is officially released, but that's one of those things that feels like an update because the game's been out for a while.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Again, we're living in this really weird time because Hades 2, which we will talk about plenty, I'm sure, is in early access. So it's like the beginning of the game. Here you go, play it for a little while, and then come back to it later.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I understand early access is industry standard now. It totally, especially for, smaller development teams and smaller studios, but it's kind of weird. It is kind of weird because I played the majority I will ever play of V Rising way back when. And I'll dip my toes into it again, but I'm probably not going to really take a bite out of it now that I've played it so much. So what were you doing in V Rising? Did you start a new game or?
I started a new game because I was like, all right, it's been probably about a year since I've engaged with this game. Let me see what it has to offer. And, the beginning of the game is a little bit more optimized. It's a little bit faster. I really played with the server settings in terms of how fast things refresh and how long daytime lasts. So I like that it's in a complete state, and I'm really excited to dig more into that game because I know last time I played, it got to a point where I was like, oh, this thing might be pretty big. I'm going to wait till it's done.
Definitely.
But how far did you get in on your initial playthroughs?
I had several playthroughs of the game. So one was in a public server, and we got to the very end game in the public server. We just got to the point where the highest level people in the server started messing with us to stop us from, because there's certain artifacts
Getting to their level.
Well, yeah, there's certain artifacts at the end of the game that put you at just a higher level. And really the only way to get them is by breaking into their castle and stealing it when they're not there. And so retroactively, they would break into our castle and get rid of all of our supplies. And that became very frustrating for me. And so I was just I don't want to play in a public server where I can't do anything because I'm not at the computer right now. But that's just a public server thing for me. But then I had just a private server with friends, and we also got to the end game there. But it just kind of ran out of content. You could tell the game didn't feel finished. And now there's new areas in the game that I haven't been to. There's new crafting things. I went back recently and played with my girlfriend in a new game that I mentioned probably about a month ago, and we're just exploring with the new castle building mechanics. You can build stairs now. Oh my god!
Thank God!
What a
finally,
concept! Yeah. So I had a lot of fun with it, but I think the majority of my playtime with that game is passed. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Have you played anything this week that you're excited to talk about?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about Hades 2, which we're going to be getting into for our main topic. So I've been playing a lot of that. Been playing Helldivers still. The new Warbond came out. I think I mentioned last episode, I didn't have to pay for it because I had earned the super credits in the game. So I got that. And then what else have I been playing? Still playing some Marvel's Midnight Suns, playing through the characters. I've completed the Deadpool and the Venom story chunks of that. Still have to do Morbius and Storm. Which like, Morbius, I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Blade is already in the game. I don't need another vampire.
It's true. Yeah.
Like
that was literally, I think, just a tie-in because Morbius was coming out. And that's like, otherwise, there's no reason for him to be in the Midnight Suns. Literally none.
Nope. It's like we already have a vampire. I get the faction that they've introduced in the DLC is vampires. So like it makes story sense that he's there, but I'm just not a fan of the character, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for me for this week. So,
nice.
but yeah, had a good week of gaming. Got some good time to invest with it. So, this weekend I was stuck at home because I had contractors here, so I had to be here but not do anything. So it gave me an ample amount of time to like sit down and do nothing.
Game.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is there's even more games coming out this week, and by more I mean mostly ones we've played before, but at least they'll be fun to for other people to play them.
Indeed. Yeah, so we got Ghost of Tsushima. The PC port is finally coming out. No, you do not have to have a PlayStation Network account to play the single player, but in order to play the multiplayer, you will have to. But Sony has rebranded it, so now it's Ghost of Tsushima Online Beta, and so
I see.
So they're trying to soften it up a little bit because of all of the Helldivers backlash that we talked about last week. But I think Ghost of Tsushima is one of the best games to come out like in the last 5 years. I think it came out in like 2020-ish. And so
it was a great late stage PS4 game. Like it made you kind of really see like, oh, this is what this console can do.
Absolutely. And like the remastered version on PlayStation 5 and I'm sure on PC, it looks really great. It looks it's a gorgeous game, and you'll constantly be taken aback by like, oh my God, the cherry blossoms are blooming and they're blowing in the wind. And meanwhile, I just slayed somebody. It's all bloody and now I'm cleaning off my sword. It's a beautiful freaking game. It's just
the haiku simulator in that game is actually fun because you're just enjoying looking at the scenery.
The haikus themselves, I don't know, but
they're thematic to what's going on.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm really excited. Not gonna pick it up. I played it enough times on PlayStation myself. Where do you stand on this, Phil?
I'm not gonna pick it up. I'm just excited more people can play it, and I'm excited to see what mods come out of it because I'm sure someone's gonna mod one of the best like rogue Jedi games to ever exist out of this one. So
sure,
be very excited for that.
Yeah, I could very much see that. That sounds awesome. All right, next up on the list, we got BioMutant, a game that came out a couple of years ago, but this is a port over to the Switch. If I remember correctly with BioMutant, it did not do well in sales, so it kind of makes sense they're doing other ports. Although it wasn't like a bad-looking game graphically. So I'm sure this took some work to lower things down to get it to run on the Switch. But for people who are Switch gamers and just, looking for new experiences, this is cool, I guess.
Yeah, BioMutant feels like it fits pretty well at home on the Switch. Like it's kind of a cutesy, weird game. I feel like it's got kind of Unreal 5-esque graphics on the character models. But if it didn't have that, it would feel like one of the most N64 games to ever be played on a C-stick. So I think it's interesting, too, that they continued to port that game. Even though, like you said, it wasn't like a huge success. I think it's been on PlayStation Plus, probably Game Pass for free.
Yeah.
But even still, they are like working to put it on the Switch, which is impressive. I hope it's better than Mortal Kombat on the Switch. We'll see. Can't be worse, could it?
Yeah, it's a pretty low bar there. All right, what else we got, Phil?
Next up on the list, we have Animal Well. This is a game I have the name of the developer, right over here. That is Billy Brasso, and the publisher is Big Mode. So if you're familiar with the video game Donkey from YouTube, so some of the best like funny video game content out there.
Yes, silly, very silly.
Very silly. It is a Metroidvania game where you play as like this little blob that moves through different areas and you're solving puzzles. So it's like, almost no combat. It's a kind of D-made looking game, so it looks like it could exist on an NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. Mm-hmm. But with a lot of really cool effects and like physics and all that stuff. So really fun game. I think it's available on PlayStation Plus.
Yeah,
so
I think it's a Plus Extra.
Plus
game.
Extra, yeah.
Yes. So it's a PlayStation Game Pass.
Yes, Play Pass.
Play Pass.
I'd say check it out. I played the first few, I played like an hour, and I was like, oh wow, this game is a lot deeper than I have time for right now. So I dipped out. But it does seem like it's the type of thing you can come back to and just like solve a puzzle. Okay. Go back, mess around with it. So
right. Well, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Donkey. Very curious about it. So this game was very much under my radar. So I'm curious to check it out. All right, and last but not least for the releases this week, Homeworld 3. We brought this game up on last week's episode. They did kind of a "we're releasing next week" announcement, and
love those.
Yes, and they did release next week, and it is next week right now. And so
we made it.
One more week. So it's getting kind of all right reviews. It seems to be hovering around like a 7. The more optimistic reviews are around an 8 out of 10. But I think a lot of people similar to me have been, craving an RTS game. There aren't really a lot of spaceship RTS games where you have as much control as you do in Homeworld, and particularly the dimensionality with it of like, oh, right, I can go underneath a starship and attack it from the bottom, or I can go above the starship and attack it from the top, or use this asteroid belt as cover. And so like that, those mechanics really give it its own RTS like identity that I think a lot of other RTS don't have, but it does still seem like there is some room for improvement, especially because Homeworld 2 came out so long ago. And the reason we had to wait so long for a third one was THQ going under. He used to own them.
Oh, damn.
So yeah, I'm very curious to check it out. I would love a demo. If there is a demo available, I would love to play that. I don't know if I'm going to invest full price for this game quite yet, though. So
this is one day when we're a bigger podcast, we'll have game codes that we can try.
Yeah,
that's me manifesting.
Yes, indeed. Well, we got a lot of traction on our TikTok this weekend. So reposted somebody's intro remake of Star Wars Republic Commando. Are you familiar with that game, Phil?
Yes, yeah. I saw that on TikTok.
Yes,
on our TikTok.
So yeah, it almost got 500,000 hits. So thank you for everyone out there who is a TikTok subscriber. So, or follower, I should say. All right, let's dive into the news. I'm very excited about this first one. We've talked about it a little before, but it actually came out this morning as we were recording it. So, Valheim Ashlands has officially released. It's not in public test mode anymore. It is built into the game, and there is a lot of content. They have posted the patch notes where you can literally see every single thing listed in the game. So I try not to do that because I don't want too many spoilers, but just to go through some of the general things that they're adding without getting specific. No spoilers coming, don't worry. But these are some of the patch notes for Valheim Ashlands. So there are over 30 new weapons. There are new bombs and ammunitions. There are 3 new armor sets, 2 new capes, over 10 new creatures, over 70 new buildable items.
Yeah.
5 new crafting station upgrades, 30 new crafting materials, over 15 new food items and potions, new locations, new music, new events, and new mechanics. So that is a fat list of upgrades and content. I am very excited to get back into Valheim to play around with these new things. I know you're a Valheim fan as well, Phil. Does this put you over the edge? Are you like, okay.
Well, here's the thing. I was looking at it and I was like, okay, so what do I got to buy now to play Valheim Ashlands, their new version? No, it's cooked into the game that you already have. That's great.
Yep.
You own I think a lot of other developers might have been like, hey, so you know how we had this game in alpha for a long time, so you supported us for making the game. Well, here's the game, and then here is, much like V Rising, here's a Castlevania pack, or here's an Ashlands pack. I think that it is impressive that they did so much to, build this game and make it as good as it is, and then give you like a whole expansion when the game came out. Pretty cool.
Absolutely.
I'm definitely gonna go back and play it.
Hell yeah. I am so excited. I kind of like, we've brought this up a couple times, but I kind of want there to be like a supporter, upgrade or something for the game. Because, in the rare moment where I agree with that ex-Blizzard exec, I'm just like, I only paid $20 for this game, and they keep pumping out the content. And, like, I feel bad. Like, I feel like I should give them more than that.
You should be able to buy, like, a new cape or a new, like, horned helmet for $5 in real life money. And like, here you go.
That would be fantastic. But I'm excited that they've continued to update it, and I know that they have another update planned for after this, which I believe will probably be the last update, but we do not know for sure. So the Great North is the last biome that they have to sort out. So
well, speaking of magical places and far off locations, let's talk about the Zelda movie. It's getting made. It's in production allegedly. It's pretty crazy to say that.
Yeah.
But yes, the Zelda movie, or Legend of Zelda movie, is technically in production, made by. I looked it up. Something Ball, Michael Ball, Wes Ball.
Wes Ball is directing it. Yeah.
Wes Ball will be the director on that. Most recently, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but before that, all the Maze Runner movies. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes seems to be getting some really great reviews, so that builds some excitement. But what do you think about the concept of a Legend of Zelda movie? I know we're living in a time of Fallout existing and being great, and The Last of Us existing and being great, and Super Mario and Sonic. It seems like we cracked the code on video game movies.
Yeah.
Do you think we can do that for Legend of Zelda?
I think it's possible. I wouldn't bet on it being great, and the reason for that is because they have said over and over and over again that this is going to be a live action adaptation. And for me, and this is something that Wes Ball, the director, has commented about, he has said he kind of wants to have like a Miyazaki approach, a Studio Ghibli approach to Zelda. And there's a lot of things cinematically that he really wants to play with. But it seems that for what Nintendo wants to do, and also remember, Nintendo is working with Sony on this. Sony's branch, movie branch, which is Columbia Pictures, for those who don't know. And it sounds like, this is going to be a live action. And now the interpretation seems to be it's going to be a live action Studio Ghibli inspired movie. The thing is that I don't know that the Studio Ghibli style, I don't even know if you could call it the same. I don't even know if it could be the same style if it's live action, because there are certain things that I think are going to get lost in the media translation of that.
Yeah.
And I've already said on this podcast, like, if you're looking for a Studio Ghibli game, it's Zelda. Zelda is the Studio Ghibli game. It's a very similar art style. It's not the same in its storytelling, but there are similarities. And so I would be really excited if they just committed to a animated and like animated as in drawn, not computer animated, version of Zelda, I think that would be a great movie, as opposed to making it into live action. Now, I would love for them to prove me wrong, but I just don't. I don't know. Where are you at with this?
I want to make a slight correction. If you want to play a Studio Ghibli game, technically you're going to want to play Ni no Kuni, which is, I think, the game they worked. But also, really pretty game, really like interesting take on Pokemon adjacent stuff. That said, I think, like, I've been racking my brain of like, okay, what are they going to do? How can they make this interesting? Because, like, you know, The Last of Us was a retelling of the story that we know. That's great. But it was like an alternate universe version of that story. And Fallout feels like a story that could take place in the world of the Fallout games that we've played. Like, tonally, it was on point with all new characters. I think the best bet for Legend of Zelda is if they kind of take the tact they've done with every game, where they're loosely connected, but also like almost multiversal, like versions of this story popping up and then disappearing and popping up and disappearing.
Okay.
But I think the challenge is if you're trying to make Legend of Zelda and Studio Ghibli work as well as they do, like playing Breath of the Wild, that's more of a vibe-based thing than it is like a story thing. And I don't know that those. I think they're trying to like put a lot of hats on a lot of hats.
Yeah, definitely.
You know?
And like, I think such a beloved franchise like Zelda, you're gonna have critics regardless of what you do. Like, I think that the Mario movie was very successful, and it still had a bunch of haters, and like, of like, well, they changed, you know, with King Kong's dad, who's King Kong's dad, or not King Kong, Donkey Kong's dad is, and it's just like, oh, does it matter that much, guys?
Yeah.
Like, but again, like that was you know, that was an animated movie, and it was computer animated, and so literally a lot of things looked exactly like the video game because it was rendered in a computer, and you're not trying to translate you know, those type of things to a live action setting. I guess I'm kind of worried about it in the way that like the Rings of Power trailer came out this morning, and you know, there was a lot of displeased Lord of the Rings fans when the first season came out. I thought that the show was okay. I don't hate it. I don't love it. Like, I'm gonna watch season 2, but there were elements of it that felt like they were trying to go for the vibe of Lord of the Rings, kind of like you were talking about how Zelda's a vibe, and they just slightly missing the mark of what that vibe was. And so I don't know. It's a hard thing to. We need a trailer. I need a trailer. I need to see something to kind of really grasping at straws here. So
they're gonna have to have like a lot of production meetings. They're like, how do we make this freaking work? How do we do it, you guys? No, I'm hopeful, but you know, my shield is up, and right behind that, my Hyrulean blade of time, or Sword of Heroes. I don't even remember what it's called. It's been too long. My purple hilted sword is ready to stab criticisms right into it.
Okay. well, speaking of getting ready to stab, God of War Ragnarok is going to be the next PlayStation port to PC. It hasn't even been announced yet. I thought that it would be announced, but apparently this report says that Sony's officially going to announce it in June, probably when everybody is doing their you know,
week of games. It's not E3.
Yeah, but it's really E3. And so I think like this is a fine announcement, but of course it was coming. We've seen Ghost of Tsushima came this week, and you know, I'm excited for PC players who are very resistant to play PlayStation games to finally get an opportunity to play one of the best games that's come out in the last couple of years. So if you've been waiting for God of War Ragnarok and you haven't already watched the entire story on YouTube, you know, this is your opportunity to do so. So fun announcement, but not really a earth-shattering one.
Yeah, I can't see it being that much fun on mouse and keyboard, mostly because the weapons feel so good with the DualSense.
Yeah.
Like when you recall the axe, or when you use some of the other weapons in that game, you just get a very visceral like feeling of what it's doing, and like when you catch one of the weapons or when it rebounds to your hand, you like really feel it in the controller. The Sony Santa Monica has a really excellent way of making things feel visceral. I'm wondering if they have like somebody, some company with them working on the port, possibly someone Sony's worked with before, because it does seem like the pace of these is getting faster and faster.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony's telling a lot of their first-party studios, like, hey, get ready to release this on PC a year later. So, like, when you release, that's not the end of what's going on. And, like, I
I
think,
think we're gonna get there in like a year or two where everything is released side and side.
yeah, and like we just saw that with Helldivers 2, and like I want to continue to see that happen. So, but yeah, PC players, if you don't want to buy a PlayStation, I would advise you at the very least get a DualSense, because that the haptic feedback with the first party games is really freaking good. So I would recommend that. All right, so a little bit of a surprise announcement. You pointed out to me right before we started today, Phil. Some Assassin's Creed news. What is this about?
So Assassin's Creed codenamed Red has been talked about for a long time. This is the one that I believe is going to be the Japan Ninja Assassin's Creed, the one that everyone has been asking for since like Assassin's Creed 2.
Yeah.
Got a new official title, which is Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I think makes a lot of sense for Ninja. Like it'll be following, I'm assuming, several different ninja characters or assassin characters. Very interesting. They're going to be doing a trailer May 15th at 9 a.m. So next week we'll have more to talk about regarding that. But I guess the one thing that I always want to say whenever I see an Assassin's Creed game or a Ninja game, that, hey, why are you doing this? We already have Ghost of Tsushima. It's already so good. They did it perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. Like I do feel like just Assassin's Creed has waited way too long to do some very obvious things. And I like when you just talked about Assassin's Creed 2, which I think came out in like I don't know, like 2011, something like that.
Oh
Maybe
no, Assassin's Creed 2 had to be like
oh 08, oh 09.
08.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. Like that was a long
Right?
time ago. Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds right. And the mechanics of the game speak so naturally to like being a ninja. It's like you're all about, we're going to go to this different part of the world. It's like, why not do Japan? Like I know that they had kind of like a half measure Assassin's Creed game in China, but it's not really the same.
Yeah,
So
it's not really at all the same.
other than it being an Eastern country, like I don't know, that's not the same, guys. So, so like I'm very excited for it, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I'd rather have Ghost of Tsushima 2, where Jin, the main character, is on mainland Japan as opposed to being on Tsushima. Yeah, it's interesting, but Assassin's Creed has just continued to lose my interest slowly over time. So unfortunately,
Yeah, it's definitely like gone to too many places. I feel like once they had the pirate game, I was like, oh, sick, we're gonna do like a different thing every time. And then I feel like we got the same version, of the same game, like with slightly different versions for like the next four Assassin's Creed games. So
yeah. Well, they had Origins, which was in Egypt, and then Odyssey, which was in Greece, and then Valhalla, which was in England. And I obviously the game changed a little bit to be like this is action RPG now, where you're gonna do more like one-on-one combat instead of like sneaking around like what it used to be. And I think they're like, hey, maybe we should get back to our roots of sneaking around, because that's what
yeah,
sold when the game came out. And they did a little bit of that in the latest one that we played. What was the title of the latest Assassin's Creed? Do you remember, Phil? You and I both played it.
That was, I think, the last Assassin's Creed was Valhalla.
No, sir. It was not. This is how forgettable this game is.
No, wait. There has been.
We talked about this on the podcast. It was originally
Mirage. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoops.
It just faded away like its namesake.
It wasn't really ever there. Okay, so this game was originally going to be DLC.
Yes, it was, but it did launch separately as a full release. I think it launched at like $50 as opposed to a regular full price game, but not an indie game either. So,
yikes, Assassin's Creed.
Hey, man, I'm loving this. You advocated for that game last year, and now you can't remember.
I did. Well, to be fair, it was different than the other Assassin's Creed games. Like, it was a little bit more in the stealth. It was like It felt like a remake of Part 1. So credit to them there. But I guess is the trouble with Assassin's Creed. There's so many other good games that are doing fun stuff, and Assassin's Creed just has not changed over the years enough.
Yeah.
So
for real. All right, so let's press on in the news. So this is coming from the current president of Xbox. He says that all Xbox Studio first-party games are going to be coming out to Game Pass as day one releases. This is very interesting because I think, and we've talked about Xbox and Game Pass a lot on this podcast, and I think that we've come to the same determination. Xbox is all in on Game Pass. That's where they're going. That's their future trajectory. And so I'm not shocked by them, going all in on Game Pass, but I am shocked because to me, I feel like this is going to hurt a lot of their sales, and it's going to hurt their first party big blockbuster games that come out, like, if I can play Elder Scrolls 6 day one on Game Pass, why am I buying Elder Scrolls 6? Like, I'm not going to buy it. And I get the theory is that, well, you just keep people subscribed and you make the money back. But one, it's like, if I buy Elder Scrolls 6, I know a certain chunk of that is going to Bethesda. I know Microsoft's going to take some off the top because they own them. But everything has to filter through Game Pass if everything's being released on Game Pass. So it's like, how much of that money actually goes
to the devs?
Yeah, goes to the studio. And I actually was really intrigued by this article that came out because I was trying to compare Xbox Game Pass to PlayStation Plus. And something that I found out about PlayStation Plus is, and you've probably noticed this while interacting with it, is like when there are PlayStation Plus monthly games, or if you're going through your extras list and you're like, I want to add this to my library. That's not an option in Game Pass. You don't add something to your library in Game Pass, but you do in PlayStation Plus. And the reason for that is if you add a game to your library in PlayStation Plus, Sony gives that developer some money because someone took the time to be like, yes, I want that game. And so I'm sure that it works similarly in Game Pass where it's like for downloads. But I know that there's lots of like PlayStation Plus games that I've clicked to add to my library that I've never played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which good for them because they're getting some money. But
so I just don't see the financial sense of this. I get for the consumer, it's going to be great, but I don't understand the financial sense of this.
I think that they must have done some math and are finding out like, okay, how do we get normies to play video games? Like more normies to play more video games? Because I think I remember a stat from a couple years ago that most people buy 2, maybe 3 games a year. Most people who play video games like semi-regularly will buy Call of Duty, buy FIFA. But I think what they're doing here, so that's like $120 back when games were $60. If they get all the extras, it could be around $200. What they're doing here now is if they charge people $10 a month for PC or, I don't know, $15 a month on Xbox, they're basically saying, like, for the price of those 2 games a year, you get all of these games. And the idea is get them in on Call of Duty, get them in on Elder Scrolls,
Right.
and then keep them in because it's like, oh, check out this really cool little game, Cassette Beasts, or check out Moving Out, or some of the other games that are on Game Pass, to kind of like keep you in that ecosystem and make you think like, oh, this is worthwhile. I might as well keep it around just in case I discover something randomly I like. They're trying to become the Netflix of games in a really interesting time because I feel like we've kind of gone through the Netflix bubble.
Yes. It's like you saw what happened to Netflix. You saw what happened to all the streaming services. Every single one of the streaming services prices have gone up.
Oh, yeah. And they're all about to consolidate into 2 different bundles that you could buy. So we basically made cable again.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like I think Microsoft should tread carefully with this. And I just want to make sure like developers are getting, what they are worth when they release a game. Like, I get it. It's going to be good for consumers. I'm probably going to benefit from this. You're probably going to benefit from this. But like, we want to keep game studios alive. This is coming off of a week ago where Microsoft closed 4 of their studios. And it's just like, maybe I just don't see this plan working for the smaller studios who are just like, well, we're on Game Pass, we're buried in the library somewhere. Similarly to how Netflix shows, like, well, if we're not on the main page, we don't get any viewers.
No one's gonna see his stuff.
Exactly. So yeah.
I think in a sense, like, what would make me really happy, and this is a bit, since we're going back to cable with like packages of streaming things. If there was a Game Pass arcade where you could, like, I'm a Game Pass subscriber, you hold up a QR code and you go in there and like play all the physical arcade games you want that are the games that are on Game Pass. As I'm saying this, I'm realizing that I should have a job for Microsoft, at least putting this together, because this would be a really cool installation of, like, I'm going to go play I'm going to go play the Tango game that just got discontinued, or not the Tango game that Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush. Okay. Yeah.
On a DDR pad. There would be so much cool stuff to do in that respect. And I think it would just, I don't know. I think we are going back to, like, you're going to have Game Pass, and that's just going to be your thing. You're going to have PlayStation Plus, and that's going to be your thing. Because of PlayStation Plus, I have so many games on my PlayStation, or PlayStation Plus Extra, that I never play, but it's just downloaded, like you were saying.
Right.
And we're living in this, like, weird time of too many games to play, not enough time, which I know is adulthood, but is also the hellscape that we live in.
Well, it's just the entertainment industry is the biggest that it's ever been. And it's going to continue to be that way. And, I'm going to, we got another Microsoft story after this. So let's
speaking of more games that you won't have time to play.
Yep.
here's what's coming to Game Pass this month. I think they're doing a pretty big month. I'm wondering if this has to do with their negative story, but there's some fun players on here. Brothers: Tale of Two Sons recently got remade. That's available today.
Yep.
Chance of Sonar, which is a game about deciphering a language and then like a mathematical system by deciphering that language. It's a really fun and interesting puzzle game. Available tomorrow. EA Sports NHL Immortals of Avium, which I think is like already on PlayStation Plus, but I think we've all been waiting for this game to be free. It's like that first-person spell shooter.
Yeah, I have it on my PlayStation right now. Have not played it though.
I played a good chunk of it. It was fun, but I'm like, okay, I need like 6 hours to just play through this narrative experience.
Right.
And then May 21st, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, which is a really exciting sequel to Senua's Saga, the first game. So Xbox is bringing the argument for Game Pass pretty strong as soon as we saw the downside of Game Pass, which is them collapsing studios kind of willy-nilly.
Yeah. So hopefully they can find a good balance. That's all I'm asking for. Find a balance.
Yeah, something.
Yes. All right. So let's. I'm gonna jump to the EA story because this was one of the bigger stories this week. So EA, it was announced like right after we recorded our podcast last week, but they are going to be exploring putting ads or advertising directly into your games. Let me. First of all, I hate this. I don't want this. But to be realistic, this is going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm on a big Star Trek kick right now, so I'm watching a lot of Paramount Plus. When you watch Paramount Plus and you pause, it shows you an ad, just in the pause screen. And so, yes, so it doesn't like
it shows you like a still ad, right?
Still,
Not like
a still image ad, and then
Okay.
it gives you a bar, like a QR code for whatever that thing is.
Wow.
And so, like that kind of stuff, I think, as we were talking about with the streaming bubble that burst, it's people are going to find ways to put more ads in things. And I think we kind of, our generation, the millennial generation, we were in the sweet spot because, like, I remember when Hulu came out. Hulu, I would watch The Simpsons. That was one of the first shows that Hulu had. And I would watch The Simpsons, and I would watch a full episode of The Simpsons, and I'd watch it for free, no subscription to anything. And I think I'd watch maybe a minute and a half or less of advertisements, where it was 3 30-second breaks, no subscription, no account. I just got to watch it. And I was able to do that because they were honing in on my niche of like, this is a younger person, is not going to pay for cable, And so now we're getting to the point where the majority of the population is streaming. Not a lot of maybe like sports fans are really the only people who are keeping DirecTV alive and all these other cable subscriptions.
It's true. My former roommate only had it so that she could watch 49ers games, and other than that, it was like, oh, it's all stuff we recorded anyway. So
yeah, exactly. So I think that people are going to find more ways to put ads into things, and also this is not the first time ads have been in video games.
Oh no.
So there have been, it's just kind of doesn't make a lot of sense today, but in loading screens, I remember like there were several games that I played where they would run an ad instead of a loading screen. And today, if you're playing with a SSD drive, you're not going to have a loading screen anymore. So they're going to have to impose that ad.
Well, I believe Burnout was one of the first games that I played. Burnout 2 or Burnout 3 was
that
one
was
of the first
one
games
I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They specifically would like change out the in-game like billboards and like side railings of the race stuff with like in-universe ads, but they were actual ads. If I can remember correctly, I feel like there was a Tony Hawk game, or maybe Skate did something similar.
Skate, I think. That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe Rocket League does this now as well.
I bet they do. I have not experienced that, but I'm sure that they do. That makes a lot of sense.
That feels like it's also like, okay, in universe, I'm okay with it. I hope if they do ads, it continues to be something like that. Like, okay, yeah, pay to update the ad. That's a good way to pay for like games continuing to get developed. Pay to make sure that this park bench says, it's no longer an ad for Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Now it's an ad for The Maze Runner 6 or whatever the new movie is. Accident. It's all Sweet Paul ads. Or Sweet James.
Yeah, I don't want ads in anything. I hate it. But it's probably going to happen. So we could hope that they will be thoughtful about this like they say they're going to be. EA does not have a great track record with being thoughtful, though. So we're just going to have to wait and see and, judge it as it comes.
True.
All right, let's try to get through these last two stories real quick so we can get into the main topic. So this is a short and sweet story. The Joker is coming to Multiversus, which is relaunching at the end of May, the end of this month. And the interesting thing about it is they got Mark Hamill to actually voice the Joker. So that is awesome. Yeah. He has publicly said that he's not going to voice the Joker anymore. since the passing of the true and one and only Batman. But yeah,
it is cool to see him get to like face off against Kevin Conroy again, because they had the recordings for Batman, and to have him. I think the Joker is such an interesting character to be talkative and to like get to record a little bit more silly stuff. Yeah. They've already got Harley in the game, so it was kind of a no-brainer that eventually this would happen. But I'm definitely excited. The Multiversus is such an interesting thing. I want to go back and play it when it launches. Let's see if I can do it for more than a minute.
Yes.
And I swear to God, Paul, if my in-game purchases from the beta don't transfer to the real game, I'm out of here.
I completely 100% agree. I'm going to be furious, and I will not play the game if they do that. That will be crossing a line, Warner Brothers. So yeah, very, very cool. For Multiversus, please don't add any more Batman characters. Like, I know you guys are running out of ideas, and like you always go to Batman for the ideas. We got enough Batman characters. Just do other characters, please. So,
give us someone else. Maybe no more superheroes for a minute.
Yeah, maybe.
Do Ted Lasso.
Don't do Ted Lasso.
Do Ted Lasso.
What is the gameplay going to be for Ted Lasso? What is it going to be?
He does like an inspiring high five, and it says like it's the Believe poster, and he'll hit it. That's his like up B attack. You can like hit somebody up into the air, and also elevate yourself emotionally and physically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Last but not least, so the Diablo 4 Season 4 has relaunched today as we are recording this. They released a trailer for it that actually in the trailer kind of called themselves out of like, are you tired of getting loot only to find something better 3 minutes later? It was like, wow, that has been the whole problem this whole time.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're calling yourself out, but you better back up what you're saying.
You guys know that you just did this, right?
Yeah, you guys not even for this game, but for years. So I'm happy that it's come out. This will be the first Diablo season since season 1 that I'm gonna go back and make a character and try to play through. So I'm excited for it. Let's hope that it holds up to all the hype that they've been pushing with their PR department online. But yeah, not much else to say for that. Let's get into the main topic, Phil, and I want to hear your initial impressions of Hades. And actually, before you do that, what has been your past experience with the first Hades game? Did you play through the first Hades game?
Yeah, I believe I played it just before it launched, so it was at the end of its early access period, and I played the bones off of it. I think I bought it on Switch, I bought it on PC, and I bought it on my PlayStation as well. So I kind of got it everywhere.
Yeah.
And probably between all of them, I played somewhere around 100 hours when the cross-save thing came out for it. So like all of my PC progress went to Switch. I was a very happy man. And I don't think I ever fully like finished the story because I know you had to beat it something like 50 times in order to get to it.
Oh yeah, I did not do that.
Which I do regret a little bit because I feel like there are parts that I'm missing out of, and that is kind of my one trepidation with Hades is that they expect you to do that much story stuff. Or that much time to get like the basic story out of the way, not even extra stuff, just the basics.
Yeah. So I mean, Hades 1, fantastic game. But yeah, similarly, after I beat the boss Hades at the end, or not at the end of the game, I beat him, and then it was like, and start over again, and I was like, so I think I beat him 2 more times. So 3 times total, and then I was like, I'm done. I don't like this is gonna take too long. And like I know because it's a roguelike, like my build is not strong enough to get me across the finish line this round. So like I got discouraged in that experience.
Well, you get to the level before you fight Hades, and there's some really challenging enemies, and you would know like by the time you were at the 6th layer of hell, you're like, I'm not getting through on this one. Let me see if I can progress some other things. That said, they really did a great job with the loop and the overall progression of like little advances you're making in getting new weapons, getting new abilities, even upgrading your homestead, which was Hades, the place, and all of the relationship stuff in that game was very, very impressive. There was so much like packed on to a really great action roguelike.
Yeah.
So going into Hades 2, I've been very, very excited. I kind of have buried my head in the sand when it came to everything about Hades 2 before the release, because I was like, I don't need to know. I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
Like they got my money. They earned it. So I guess over the first couple hours, I've felt like a bit of a learning curve, but everything to do with the story, everything to do with the characters, I am so in. Seeing that there are new gods and seeing like the relationship to them that Melanoy encounters is very interesting. And just the gameplay changes they made, I'm on board to play more, but I just haven't had the time to like really sit down and dig in for a couple of hours like I want to, and that's been the challenge for me.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on Hades 2 so far?
I mean, I think it's really fun. It does a lot of the things that I like to see in a direct sequel, which are just like, taking that foundation that you've worked on in the first game and then just adding to it. And so, like, honestly, when I was playing it, I was like, God, this is how I wish Diablo would play. Like, instead of, and I think like Diablo gets a little caught up in, because like the optimal way to play Diablo is a mouse and keyboard, and like, but realistically with Diablo, it's like if you wanted to, you can just play with one hand. Like you can just play with a mouse,
click,
and
click,
you can just click on everything. And I find that in playing, my experience of playing Diablo with controllers is like, I feel like I have a little bit more control, particularly when using physical classes. Like I think the Barbarian is a great class to play with a controller. And I think Hades is really a refined version of that. Or kind of like we were talking about V Rising earlier. It's another top-down game, and it's an action game, but the combat is just so much more thoughtful than it is in Diablo, where Diablo is just like, well, whose health bar is going to go down faster? That's what Diablo is. Whereas in this game, it's like you have to be, you can't just like take hits. You have to be careful. You can't just like, your character is not able to just take a beating. And so you have to be more tactful about what you do. And so I'm having a really great time getting back into that like top-down action type game. And what else? I really love the change of like using magic, and like this main character in Hades 2, she's all about like, I have magic, I have a mana bar that I use. The one mechanic I really didn't use in the first Hades was like that crystal thing that you shoot out at somebody, and then they get like targeted by that, and you can do extra damage. You can do a variety of things, but it's like I never really cared for that. It was definitely the mechanic I used the least. And this, especially with the starting weapon being a mage staff, feels like, oh, okay, this is a beat 'em up game, but it is very stylized, and they had a specific vision for this character and what she can do. So really like it. I've only played over a little over 3 hours of it. I've gotten past the first boss, and I've gotten some of the new or the different weapons that's good to see. So I'm having a great time with it, honestly.
Yeah. Melanoy being a witch is such an interesting thing, and also, like you said, the magic it kind of invites you to use it. It's very interesting. Like, I don't feel like the game does a great job of explaining some of the abilities, but then like experimenting with it. And it's probably an early access thing, or maybe I just skipped it in a crucial piece of dialogue. But it feels a lot of fun to explore. Like, okay, how do these combine? How does this work? So I've been playing on an Xbox controller, and the B button does a thing where you create like a little circle around yourself, and you can like trap foes in it. And what I've kind of found is when you damage one of them in the circle, it damages everyone in the circle. So it's a really fun game of like, okay, how do I get around everyone and cast this
right,
without them hitting me, and then just like lay damage in one direction.
Yeah.
I will say, like, going back and forth between, I've been playing a little bit of Vampire Survivors and this. The combat is so good. It's good in both, but it's just like dashing around in Hades is like part of what you're supposed to do, and then I'll go back to Vampire Rising and dash, and then it's like you have a cooldown, and I'm just like running from a badger.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
this. So yeah, this team prior to this, they did a game that came out for PlayStation. I can't remember what it was called, but it was kind of like a hex-based like grid battle game where you play like a girl with a big talking sword. And before that, they did Bastion, which I believe was an Xbox exclusive. But that was like a great sort of like beat 'em up roguelike sort of game about the end of the world. Everything they do is just so beautifully stylized.
Yes.
I'm glad of all the things they've done that Hades is the one they decided to come back to.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hades it was so renowned. It got nominated for Game of the Year. You know, a lot of people considered it I think, what was the Game of the Year? It might have been Last of Us 2 took the Game of the Year at like the Game Awards. But of course, there's so many different Game of the Year awards out there. I think IGN might have given Hades their Game of the Year that year.
They did in 2021, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a no-brainer to come back to it. I think the combat is just so responsive, and something that you hinted to earlier was the storytelling and the way that they divulge information in phases. I think really works well within that roguelike structure, in ways that for me other roguelikes don't do as well in their storytelling. So what's the roguelike I'm thinking of for PlayStation where you're the astronaut and you crash? Returnal.
Returnal, yeah.
Yes. So like Returnal, I think Returnal was a very great game, and I love Housemarque. I love their games so much. But I felt like the storytelling in Returnal was a bit clunky, and it felt disjointed because you didn't have characters helping to deliver exposition and helping to deliver plot points like you get in Hades when you come back and you're like, oh, I'm back in camp again, or I'm back in the house again, or wherever. So I'm curious to play more of it. I don't really know the extent of early access that it is. Like, am I going to get to a point they're like, we're not done with this section yet? Like, I don't know.
From what I've heard from a couple of reviews, it seems like the ending. There's just no ending currently.
Oh,
which is interesting, and I think probably the satisfying way to do it, so that the end of the game is when the game is out.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm very impressed with the fact that this is early access. Like, it just works so well already. Granted, they built a lot off of what Hades 1 was.
Right.
But everything it's fully voice acted already, and gorgeous, and the character designs are so good. I like that we get to see new gods we didn't get to see before. Like, I ran into Hephaestus for the first time.
Yes. Right on, yeah.
I always think that he's going to be... It's funny because, like, the way they twist the sort of gods and, like, their personas, I always thought Hephaestus was going to be really sweet and meager because he was, like, the deformed one. That's how he's usually portrayed.
Right.
And then when you meet him, he's kind of like, nah, your weapon's crap. Let me fix that for you. Like, he's kind of a douche about it. Similarly, you meet just so many other, like, characters that, if you're at all familiar with Greek myth, are, like, such an interesting spin on it.
Right.
And if you're not, they have enough gravitas and, like, interesting things about them to make you want to see them again. Yeah. So,
and there's enough variety there with all of the powers to, like, really, like, oh, what are the combinations that I can get? Can I get, like, Poseidon's power combined with Demeter, and so I'm pushing people away with water, but then I'm freezing them, or so it's very addictive, if not difficult. But
I feel like I'm having a more hard time with this one getting through the levels than I did Hades 1.
Yeah, I do feel like the first boss, like honestly, the first boss, I figured her out now because I've learned her moves, which is obviously like the whole premise of a roguelike in the first place is you just gotta learn the moves that they do. But it was kind of one of those things where the first time I played it through the game, which also the game doesn't have an intro. It's just like you're just going. And the first time I played, I almost beat the boss, and then the next like 5 times, I didn't get anywhere as close as I did that first time, and I was just getting frustrated. I was just like, why could I do this the first time? And then it's just downhill from there. So
my first time, I didn't even make it past the mini boss to get to the sort of first end boss. So.
What, yeah, is there a mini boss? I think that's a choice, right? Like you can choose to fight the mini bosses.
Yes. Yeah, I did. I made that choice, and it was the wrong choice for me at the time. But
first time probably not the right choice.
Right? I'm surprised. Well, I don't know. I'm very interested in this game. I'm very interested to see what they're going to add to it because it feels so complete. I don't really know what they could. But, if we'd ever see a Hades multiplayer version, I would be pretty interested in that. Like, how would you do a multiplayer roguelike? Like, what would that all entail? And the amount they have in here, it makes me feel like they might add something huge. Not to say that they're going to add multiplayer, but it's something huge like that. Because otherwise, why would they say it's in early access when it's pretty much done? Because most games... Like, even when they're done, they're in early access and they're getting updated anyway, so...
Well, I think it's only available on Steam right now because it's early access. So it's no console releases, I don't think. Oh, you know what? It's also available on the Epic Store, I'm seeing over here. But only available on PC. So, yeah, I would love a multiplayer mode. I think, like, if you could do a Ghost of Tsushima thing where it's a separate mode that's separate of the game... and like you could do co-op, something like that. That could be really interesting.
Yeah.
So I think PvP would be a hot mess. But
Please no. We're over PvP, guys. We just want to cooperatively do things together.
Yes.
We fight enough as it is.
Yes, we do. All right. Well, any more thoughts on Hades before we wrap it up? We're getting over time.
I would Hades to not see more Hades. I want to see more Hades.
Okay. More Hades in the game, please.
Please. I just mean the games. Like give me one every 5 years. I don't care.
Okay. All right. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, this was only 3 years. It was only a 3-year wait, so that's nice.
That's a good turnaround.
It was. All right. So that's going to wrap us up for this week's episode of the GGG Podcast. If you liked this episode, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can see the video version of our podcast. If you're listening to the audio-only version on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to your podcast, subscribe to us there. Follow us there. Give us some follows, some likes. We're almost at 6,000 followers on our TikTok account, so that's pretty awesome. And hopefully we'll continue from there. But have a good week, Phil. Have a good week, everybody, and good gaming.
Good gaming.
Good
GGG.
Yeah. Exactly. He's got it. We got it.